Have you ever looked at a narcissist and wondered, how did they become this cruel? Maybe there was a time when they at least pretended to care, showed occasional remorse, or made an effort to hide their manipulation. But now it feels as though every trace of empathy has vanished. Their lies are bolder, their manipulation is colder, and the pain they inflict seems almost deliberate. It can feel as if they've transformed into someone completely different. The reality is more complex. While it's tempting to describe this change as becoming pure evil, what's often happening is that the narcissist has stopped hiding behaviors they once carefully disguised. As they become more confident that they can control the people around them or feel they have nothing left to lose, their actions may become increasingly ruthless. Today, we'll explore 3 terrifying signs that this escalation may be happening, why it occurs, and most importantly, what it means for your safety and emotional well-being. Sign number 1. They no longer pretend to care about the damage they cause. In the early stages of a relationship, many narcissists work hard to maintain a positive image. If they hurt you, they may apologize, not necessarily because they feel genuine remorse, but because they want to preserve the relationship or protect how they're perceived. Over time, something often changes. The apologies become less convincing. Then they become shorter. Eventually, they disappear altogether. Instead of saying, "I'm sorry you were hurt," they may say, "That's your problem," or "You're too sensitive." This isn't just a lack of empathy, it's a sign they've stopped investing energy in maintaining the mask they once wore. They no longer feel the need to convince you they're a good person because they believe they've already established enough control over the relationship. One of the clearest warning signs is when they begin taking satisfaction in your emotional reactions. They provoke arguments, push your boundaries, and then watch your response with surprising calmness. Your distress becomes something to dismiss, mock, or even use against you later. Psychologically, this doesn't necessarily mean they've become a different person overnight. It often means the image they carefully maintained in the beginning is no longer serving a purpose. The mask slips, and the underlying pattern becomes much easier to see. Perhaps the most frightening part isn't the cruelty itself, it's the indifference. Because when someone no longer cares about the consequences of their behavior, they're far less likely to change it. Sign number 2. Control becomes more important than the relationship. A healthy relationship is built on connection. An unhealthy narcissistic relationship often becomes centered on control. At first, control can be subtle. They want to know where you are, who you're talking to, why you didn't reply immediately. They may describe this as love or concern, but as time goes on, the need for control often expands. Now they question your friendships, your family, your career, your confidence, your independence. Anything that makes you stronger or less dependent on them can begin to feel threatening. This is where many people make a critical mistake. They assume the narcissist is fighting to save the relationship. In reality, they may be fighting to preserve control over the relationship. There's an enormous difference. Someone who loves you wants the relationship to thrive. Someone who needs control wants to make sure you never feel strong enough to leave. That's why attempts to become more independent often trigger dramatic reactions. You start setting boundaries. They become angrier. You reconnect with friends. They accuse you of betrayal. You become more confident. They become more critical. Your growth exposes what they fear most, losing influence over your life. And when control becomes more important than connection, manipulation usually intensifies. That's one of the clearest signs the relationship has entered a far more dangerous stage. Sign number 3. They stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as a resource. Perhaps the most disturbing shift happens when the narcissist no longer views you as an equal human being with thoughts, feelings, and needs. Instead, you become a source of something they want: attention, validation, status, money, emotional support, admiration, or simply someone to blame for everything that's going wrong in their life. This is why they can appear surprisingly affectionate one day and emotionally cold the next. Their behavior isn't guided by genuine emotional intimacy. It's guided by whether you're currently providing what they need. The moment you stop meeting that need, their treatment of you often changes dramatically. You may notice that conversations revolve almost entirely around them. Your successes are ignored, your struggles are minimized, your achievements are criticized, your feelings become inconvenient. Eventually, you begin feeling less like a partner and more like an object whose purpose is to serve a role. That role may change over time, but one thing remains consistent. The relationship becomes increasingly one-sided. And that's what makes this stage so emotionally damaging. Because people don't usually realize what's happening until they've spent years trying to earn compassion from someone who was never relating to them in the same way. Closing. If these signs sound familiar, remember this. The goal isn't to decide whether someone is pure evil. The goal is to recognize when someone's behavior has become consistently harmful, manipulative, or emotionally unsafe. Labels don't protect you. Awareness does. The most important question isn't, why have they become this way? It's, what do I need to do to protect my own mental and emotional well-being? Because no amount of kindness, patience, or understanding can force another person to develop empathy or accountability. But you can choose to protect your peace. You can choose boundaries. You can choose relationships built on mutual respect instead of fear and control. And sometimes the strongest thing you'll ever do isn't trying to understand someone who keeps hurting you. It's accepting that you don't need to understand every reason behind their behavior in order to recognize that it's unhealthy. Remember this. The most dangerous narcissist isn't always the loudest one. It's the one who no longer feels the need to hide who they are. One of the biggest mistakes people make after recognizing these warning signs is believing they've somehow done something to cause this change. They ask themselves questions like, was I too emotional? Did I push them away? If I had been more patient, would things be different? Those questions are understandable, but they're also dangerous because they shift your focus away from the narcissist's choices and place the entire weight of the relationship on your shoulders. The truth is, no emotionally healthy person suddenly becomes cruel because you expressed your needs. No emotionally mature partner punishes you for asking to be treated with respect. When someone's behavior becomes increasingly manipulative, it's not because you failed to love them correctly. It's because manipulation has become more effective than mutual respect in getting what they want. And that's an important distinction. Many narcissists don't become more dangerous overnight. They become more confident. Confident that you'll stay. Confident that you'll forgive. Confident that no matter how badly they treat you, you'll continue searching for reasons to understand them instead of reasons to leave. That confidence changes everything. In the beginning, they may have hidden their worst behaviors because they feared losing you. But once they believe you're emotionally invested enough not to leave, the effort often disappears. Think about it this way. Imagine someone renting a beautiful house to attract buyers. Every room is spotless. Fresh flowers sit on the table. Everything looks perfect. But once the contract is signed, they stop maintaining the property altogether. The appearance changes because they no longer believe they have to impress anyone. For many survivors, this analogy feels painfully familiar. The loving, attentive person they met in the beginning slowly disappears. In their place is someone who seems impatient, critical, controlling, and emotionally unavailable. That's why people often say, I just want the old version of them back. But what if that version wasn't the complete picture? What if the beginning wasn't the real relationship, but the audition? That's one of the hardest ideas to accept because it forces us to question memories that once brought us comfort. The early affection may have felt genuine in the moment, but genuine love doesn't slowly disappear every time someone gains more control over you. Healthy love becomes more secure over time. Manipulative love often becomes more conditional. Another terrifying sign that a narcissist has entered a much darker stage is how they respond to your suffering. In healthy relationships, seeing someone you love in pain usually creates concern. Even during disagreements, Emotionally mature people don't enjoy watching their partner cry. They may become defensive, they may need space, but eventually empathy returns. With a narcissist, something very different can happen. Your pain becomes inconvenient, or worse, useful. If crying makes you easier to control, they may continue pushing until you break. If guilt keeps you from leaving, they'll remind you of everything they've supposedly done for you. If fear makes you obedient, they'll create uncertainty about the future. Notice the pattern. Your emotions stop being something to care for. They become something to manage. And that's an incredibly dangerous shift. Because once another person's feelings become tools instead of experiences deserving compassion, manipulation often becomes much more deliberate. This is why so many survivors describe feeling emotionally exhausted all the time. Not because they're weak, but because they've been living in a constant state of emotional survival. Their nervous system never gets a chance to relax. Every conversation feels unpredictable. Every disagreement feels like a risk. Every peaceful moment feels temporary. Over time, the body begins responding as though it's living under continuous threat. You may struggle to sleep. You may overthink every conversation. You may apologize automatically without even knowing why. You may constantly scan other people's facial expressions for signs of anger or disappointment. These aren't personality flaws, they're survival responses. And recognizing that can be incredibly freeing, because once you understand that your reactions were shaped by your environment, you stop blaming yourself for adapting to it. Perhaps the most frightening stage comes when the narcissist realizes they no longer need your love, only your attention. Whether that attention comes through admiration, fear, arguments, or emotional chaos becomes almost irrelevant. As long as they remain the center of your emotional world, they continue feeling significant. That's why some narcissists create conflict immediately after periods of peace. Calm feels unfamiliar. Attention feels powerful. The more emotionally invested you become in fixing every problem, the less energy you have to examine the relationship itself. And that's exactly where many people remain stuck, not because they don't see the red flags, but because they're too busy putting out emotional fires to ask why the fires keep starting. Eventually, however, a moment arrives that changes everything. It may happen after one cruel comment, one broken promise, one final betrayal, or perhaps after years of emotional exhaustion. You suddenly stop asking, "How do I save this relationship?" and begin asking, "Why am I fighting so hard for someone who isn't fighting for me?" That question marks the beginning of clarity, because clarity doesn't always arrive with dramatic revelations. Sometimes it arrives quietly. The excuses stop making sense. The apologies stop feeling meaningful. The promises stop sounding new. And for the first time, you begin seeing patterns instead of isolated incidents. That's the moment the narcissist becomes far less powerful. Not because they've changed, but because you finally have. The moment you stop trying to understand the narcissist more than you understand yourself, everything begins to change. For so long, your life may have revolved around one question: how do I make this relationship work? But healing begins the moment that question is replaced with a different one. What would my life look like if I stopped carrying responsibility for someone else's choices? At first, that question can feel frightening, because leaving behind manipulation doesn't just mean leaving behind pain. It also means letting go of hope. Hope that one day they'll apologize. Hope that one day they'll become the person you believed they could be. Hope that all the sacrifices you made will finally be worth something. But here's what many survivors eventually discover: the person they were waiting for never actually existed. What existed were moments, moments of kindness, moments of affection, moments of vulnerability. Those moments felt real, but they were never consistent enough to build a healthy relationship. Healthy relationships aren't built on occasional kindness. They're built on consistent respect. That's the difference. One of the greatest lies manipulation teaches you is that your value depends on someone else's opinion. If they praise you, you feel worthy. If they criticize you, you question yourself. If they ignore you, you feel invisible. Your confidence slowly becomes tied to their approval, and that's exactly how emotional control works. The more your identity depends on another person, the easier it becomes for them to influence your emotions. But the moment you stop looking to them for validation, their power begins to disappear. Not because they've changed, because you have. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself. You stop defending every decision. You stop trying to convince someone to see your value, because you've realized something incredibly important. People who genuinely respect you don't need endless proof that you deserve respect. They simply treat you with it. That's what emotionally healthy relationships look like. They don't leave you constantly wondering where you stand. They don't make you afraid to express your feelings. They don't punish honesty. They create safety. And safety is something many survivors don't realize they've been missing until they finally experience it. For a while, peace might even feel uncomfortable. You've become so accustomed to emotional highs and lows that calmness feels unfamiliar. No dramatic arguments, no silent treatment, no walking on eggshells, no wondering which version of someone you'll meet today. At first, your mind may even mistake that calmness for boredom. But it's not boredom. It's stability. It's what your nervous system has been craving all along. Little by little, you begin reconnecting with yourself. You laugh more freely. You make decisions without asking for permission. You spend time with people who genuinely celebrate your success instead of competing with it. You stop shrinking to make someone else feel bigger. And perhaps, for the first time in years, you begin trusting your own instincts again. That's real freedom. Not freedom from the narcissist alone. Freedom from the belief that you were responsible for fixing them. Because you never were. Every adult is responsible for their own behavior, their own healing, their own choices. Compassion doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. Forgiveness doesn't require continued access to your life. And kindness should never cost you your peace. If someone repeatedly lies to you, manipulates you, humiliates you, or makes you question your own reality, the healthiest response isn't asking how to love them better. It's asking why you've been expected to tolerate what should never have been normal. That single question has the power to change your future, because the strongest people aren't those who endure endless emotional pain. They're the ones who finally recognize that strength isn't measured by how much suffering you can survive. It's measured by what you're no longer willing to accept. So if you've recognized these signs in someone close to you, don't ignore them. Don't minimize them. And don't convince yourself that more kindness will solve a problem that only accountability can fix. Your empathy is a gift, but gifts should be shared with people who know how to value them, not with people who repeatedly use them against you. Remember, the goal of this video wasn't to label anyone as pure evil. It was to help you recognize when harmful behavior has escalated to the point where your emotional well-being is genuinely at risk. Awareness is your protection. Boundaries are your protection. Self-respect is your protection. Because the most terrifying thing about a narcissist isn't how convincing they can be. It's how easily they can make good people question their own worth. Don't let that happen to you. The day you stop chasing their approval is the day you begin reclaiming your life. The day you stop trying to change them is the day you finally give yourself permission to change your future. And one day, you'll look back and realize something extraordinary. The relationship that caused you so much pain also taught you one of life's greatest lessons. Never sacrifice your peace to keep someone else comfortable. Because real love will never ask you to abandon yourself. Real love will never make you earn basic respect. And real love will never leave you feeling afraid to be yourself. So protect your peace. Trust your instincts. Choose relationships where respect is mutual, kindness is appreciated, and love never comes at the expense of your identity. If this video gave you a new perspective, let me know in the comments which of these 3 signs stood out to you the most. If you found it valuable, don't forget to like this video, Subscribe for more psychology-based insights on narcissism and emotional healing, and share it with someone who may need this message today. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, remember this: the greatest victory over a narcissist isn't making them regret losing you. It's reaching the point where you no longer need them to. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe my channel for latest videos.